Let's get one thing straight. Ending a toxic relationship isn't hard because you don't love them. It's hard because you do. You don't walk away because you're weak. You walk away because staying is slowly killing the version of you that used to have clarity, confidence, and peace. And the most dangerous part? Toxic love doesn't feel toxic all the time. Sometimes it feels like home. Sometimes it feels like hope. But today, we're going to talk about the truth nobody wants to admit. Why loving them isn't a reason to stay. Why leaving hurts more than staying at first. And why walking away is the most self-respecting move you'll ever make. A toxic relationship doesn't destroy you overnight. It does it slowly. One argument at a time. One apology that changes nothing. One promise that sounds sincere, but leads right back to the same pain. You remember who they were in the beginning. You remember the laughs, the late nights, the moments where it felt real, and you keep chasing that version of them, even though that version no longer exists. Here's the brutal truth. You're not in love with who they are now. You're in love with the idea of who they used to be and who you hope they'll become. And hope is what keeps people trapped the longest. Toxic relationships create emotional addiction. High highs, low lows, chaos followed by affection. Your nervous system gets wired to instability. Peace starts to feel boring. Silence feels uncomfortable. So even when you know it's bad, even when you're exhausted, even when your confidence is gone, your mind says, just one more conversation, just one more chance. Maybe this time it'll be different, but it never is. Not because you didn't try hard enough, but because love can't fix someone who refuses to change. This is where most people lie to themselves. They say, I can't leave because I love them. But love is not supposed to cost you your self-respect. Love is not supposed to drain your energy. Love is not supposed to make you doubt your worth. If you're constantly explaining your pain, if your boundaries are always ignored, if your needs are treated like inconveniences, that's not love. That's attachment mixed with fear. And fear will convince you to accept things you would never tolerate if you were thinking clearly. There's always a moment when you don't recognize yourself anymore, when you're quieter than you used to be, when you overthink everything you say just to avoid conflict, when you feel lonely, even when you're not alone. That's not because you're weak. That's because you've been emotionally surviving instead of living. And the scary part? You start believing this is the best you can get, that this pain is normal, that this is just how relationships are. It's not. It's what happens when you stay too long in a place that keeps taking and never giving back. Walking away feels brutal at first, because now there's silence. No texts, no chaos, no emotional spikes, just you and the grief. You grieve the relationship. You grieve the future you imagined. You grieve the person you hoped they'd become. And your mind starts romanticizing the past. Selective memory kicks in. You forget the pain and replay the good moments on loop. This is where most people go back. Not because it was healthy, but because it was familiar. Growth feels uncomfortable. Toxicity feels known. But discomfort is temporary. Staying stuck is permanent. You don't leave to punish them. You leave to protect yourself. You leave because you can't heal in the same environment that broke you. You leave because love without respect becomes self-betrayal. You leave because your future deserves a version of you that isn't emotionally drained. And here's the hardest truth to accept. Sometimes the person you love is the same person you must walk away from. Not because they're evil, but because they're incompatible with your peace. At first, it hurts. Then it gets quiet. Then your mind clears. Then your energy comes back. Then your confidence slowly rebuilds. You start remembering who you were before the chaos. You stop shrinking. You stop explaining yourself. And one day, you realize you didn't lose them. You found yourself. Ending a toxic relationship with someone you love is one of the hardest decisions you'll ever make. But staying in one is a decision too. A decision to keep sacrificing yourself for a connection that's already broken. Love is not supposed to feel like constant survival, and choosing yourself is not selfish. It's necessary. If this message hits you, you already know what you need to do. The question is no longer whether you should leave. It's whether you're ready to stop abandoning yourself to keep someone else comfortable.